Yo, what up? I don't even remember what episode this is. It's Wu-Tang Wednesday. This is Protect Your Deck. I think it's 6 or 7, but I got so many backlogged that it doesn't even matter at this point because I don't know when I'm going to release them. But we're back. It's Wu-Tang Wednesday. What up? I'm with the homie, Blake. If you don't know who this dude is, you're about to find out. This dude is the Dorinthia disciple. This dude's been terrorizing the local scene on his dory, both traditional and non-traditional dory. LSS might as well change the weapon from Dawn Blake to Dawn Blake, you heard? Get out my face, Sean Connor. Suck a big one, T-1000. We're not talking Terminator 2. We're talking Decimator 2, Judgment Day. I dare you to block this big-ass axe. This dude started playing off a little more casually, and now he's collecting all the casualties. Blake, what's up, dude?
What's up, man? I was really excited for the intro because I remember the first few ones. I was like, you got to do it up hype. It's got to be good.
Yeah, dude. I didn't have, I just recorded one with Max yesterday, which will be the next one that comes out. And I had a long work day, and it was a good intro. You'll see. It was a good intro, but I learned, bro, I have caffeine all the time on me, so I just need to drink a bunch. Yeah, there it is. Berry pomegranate Mio.
Berry pomegranate Mio.
Yo, Blake, for those who don't know who you are about to find out for real. Blake, you're one of the people on my upcoming list of like people you might not know of that are coming out of Springs that you're gonna find out this year. You've been doing some cool shit locally. For those that don't know you, how did you get into Flesh and Blood? How was like what's your origin story? How did you end up playing this?
So I've always been really competitive at any games I play. I played Destiny. I used to do like trials carries and stuff and stream on Twitch, and I used to be super competitive with that. And then I moved in with a buddy of mine. He taught me how to play Pokemon, and I wanted to compete with Pokemon, but I've learned very quickly that Pokemon is you play the top 3 decks, and if you're not playing the top 3 decks, you're never going to win anything. This was a while ago, so it could have changed, but it got to the point where there was also no like skill expression because it was you draw your hand, you look at your hand, there's an optimal way and an optimal cycle to play your hand. If you did anything out of order, that was the like skill expression of the game. And then I came over to Flesh and Blood back in Uprising, played for a little bit with Prism and Bravo and Rhinar and just kind of dabbled everywhere. Stopped playing for Dynasty and then came back right at Dusk Till Dawn, and then I've been hitting the ground running with Dory ever since.
Hell yeah. So the reason I wanted to have you on this podcast specifically, and the topic for today is going to be like winning your first armory, but like doing it with like conviction, because there's so many players that play Flesh and Blood, and we kind of all start off with like, oh man, this is a great game, I just want to have fun, and then like everyone kind of tries to fish for their first win at an armory, not like an actual armory win. Like it is so, Flesh and Blood is so skill expressive that like when you start playing, you're gonna lose a lot, especially if you're playing in a scene like we're blessed, but like it's tough for newer players because sometimes they can get matched up someone against someone that won an RTN, won a PQ, traveled, and like Tuck is in our local scene and won the battle hard, and like all the guys, there's so many killers in this scene that it's our newer players get good just by sharing the table with them, but it's really tough to like chase that first win, and then they go from that first win to like, all right, you start linking them up, you start to get better, and then you start to win armories. And you very recently, and I use the word casual, but even when I first met you and you were trying to win, it just something shifted, and I want to catch like that lightning in a bottle. We haven't ever talked about this before. I know that you knew that I wanted to have this conversation, but there was like something that shifted, because then you went from like showing up and just like, you know, maybe going 2-2 or 3-2 because we had 5-round armories before like go late, to like you won one in a room full of killers and then repeated that success like within a month again, and you kind of weren't winning them before. So there's a ton of people that are going to be listening to this that are going through the same kind of, I want to win my first armory. And like, I want to go through that process with you. Was there difference in your list, difference in your preparation, difference in your mindset? Was it luck and you just showed up and won? Like, me and you kind of lab a lot behind the scenes, but we've never kind of had this conversation about like, what was the difference? Because I see it, but I don't know what was happening behind the scenes.
Right. So the main thing is I wanted to be competitive, and I wanted to show people that I kind of wanted to show myself that I knew what I was talking about when I was talking about things. I might not have been able to express it on the table, but in my head, I'm running through all the different lines. You're playing a card, I'm thinking about the worst possible punish you have or what's coming up next. And I wasn't really capitalizing on those at the armory level until I started playing Dorinthia, and I said, I'm not playing anything else. I'm going to play Dorinthia. Even if I lose a bunch, I'll learn a lot, and then I'll be able to kind of take a step outside myself. I know what my hand does and what I'm going to do. I need to be paying attention to my opponent. The way I won my first armory, I would say comes a lot, boils down to like preparation. I'm always looking at deck lists. I'm always looking at YouTube, looking at the card guys, the runaways. I'm looking at the Blood Rush fellows. I'm looking at all these teams and all their different media that they put out and all these deck techs and RTNs and callings and all the different tournaments around that are getting streamed. I'm watching and absorbing all of this information and taking what little pieces I can use myself. I also come from like the competitive gaming scene of like shooters and stuff like that. And a lot of it relies on your skill as a person. So to hone that, I would just jam Talishar games. I'd hit you up, I'd hit up Wes, I'd hit up Dylan, Siren. I've messaged a ton of people, hey, I need a game against that deck because I've never played it. I need to see what you're trying to do so that I can think about how to beat it. And it just went from that, messing with lists, adding cheeky little tech cards. I'd started with Hatchet Dory, into Saber Dory, into Decimator Dory, into Saber Decimator Dawnblade Dory, into Dawnblade Dory. I've played like every iteration of Dory I could, tried all these different unique tech cards. And then also the reason I fell in love with Dorinthia was because she plays with your opponent's perceived value. So there's a lot of times where in Flesh and Blood, you look at your hand and it maths out to be X number of value. Well, if I'm holding a Sink Below, I should have pitched it for my verses to get a Courage token or something like that. Threaten a non-hit. But if I'm holding that card and I have a resource floating, you're looking at it like, oh, it's a 1 for 3. No blocks, or I'm going to block 3 over. So I just got an extra value out of that Sink Below that I didn't get beforehand to put it in Arsenal. I get the value on my next turn. You see it was a Sink Below and you're like, you got me.
You get like double the value off of that because I'm giving you the value of it being a 1 for 3 pump, and then you're going to get the natural 0 for 4 value on it being, the value for it. So you said a lot of things. I was taking notes here. And one of the things you kind of circled back to, you said that Dory lets you play your opponent. What were you playing before Dorinthia?
I started the game on Prism right before she LL'd. And then I've messed around with a bunch of different decks here and there, and I ended up on Bravo. Bravo was kind of the consistent. It taught me how to pitch stack. It taught me the fundamentals of the game of blocking and mathing out your turn value and when's a better idea to pitch to your tech plating or to float that resource and bluff a pummel and that sort of thing.
Was it that like, because then like the transition was you said that you went to Dory because it allowed you to play your opponent, and there's only a few decks that do that, but did you get like the taste for that when you were like, I have one floating, and then like for pummel, right? Because that's like that's not the only way that you can get got against a Bravo, but it's like one of the more popular ways where they can like kind of fake and give perceived, like they can milk more value out of their cards if you're gonna block or like overblock or anticipate that they have a pummel if that's what they're showing. But the Dorinthia deck kind of all does that. Is that what got you there, or?
Part of it, yeah. There's nothing more satisfying than sending a CNC with a pummel kicker, and Dory is kind of that all the time. Like I'll send 6 at you, you block 6. I'm like, cool. I hit you for an extra 3. I use that floating resource. I swing it again. If you don't know how to play into Dorinthia, like as a newer player, the deck feels unfair. It feels broken because everybody teaches you from like the bare bones level, you got to play to make them have the thing that they're bluffing, or you got to play to make them have it. Well, Dory almost always has it.
And can like just win the game off of it. Like you could just get blown out from that. Yeah. It's interesting because like I feel like Katsu and Dorinthia, I've said this, they do the same thing. They just do it. It's the flip side of the same coin, where if you don't know how to block, and that's what brought me to it, But that's interesting. So you kind of fell in love with Dory because you felt like it gave you more skill expression that maybe isn't exactly cards. Like not like just playing your cards, you get to play your opponent. How long did you play Pokemon for before? Because a lot of people that come into Flesh and Blood played a lot of other card games before. And it seems like you came from like a competitive gaming background, but not necessarily cards. So it's interesting to me that would be the thing that you would pick up on, because you might speed up to other players that are just better like at Flesh and Blood. Let's say like someone like Easton Douglas, right? Like he's gonna math better than me and you. He's gonna play fundamental, I almost said TFT. He's gonna play fundamental Flesh and Blood better than me and you. Like, you know what I mean? Top 4 in the world. Right. So like, I would fear Easton's going into like a draft pod with him, right? Like I'm gonna have to make sure that I am as efficient as fuck with what I'm setting and how I'm blocking. Do you think that maybe that kind of, because I think it did for me. Playing Katsu was one of those things that like I sat across from when I sit across from people when I travel and they're looking and reading my cards, I'm like, oh no, you don't know what this card does. You're so fucked. Like I got you, but there's not a lot of other decks do it as well as Dorinthia and Katsu. So I think where I'm like a newer player in Flesh and Blood, I was able to kind of make up some of the skill gap. And I didn't really notice it until you said that. It's actually pretty interesting, because I feel like if you didn't come from a lot of card games, a mastery of Dorinthia will kind of shorten that gap, or you can surpass it quickly. So
like Bravo was a very face-up deck. The only like bluffing you could really do was what card you were going to send next. If you kept a full stack that was like, do I have Dominated Crippling, Dominated Starstruck, Rouse into Hammer, like a math efficient play. But if you keep a full grip on Dory, there's like a million different possibilities. And Dory can capitalize with those gotcha moments to eke out those wins against players who might be better, who might say, I'm going to play to make you have it. And now all of a sudden I routed that card out of your hand. You took 6 on this turn. You thought you were only going to take 3 as the worst possible blowout. So I have that game now, and now you're going to think about that going forward. But I want to say I played Pokemon for like 8 months maybe.
Oh, so not that, but that's still relatively like not. And if you're saying that Pokemon didn't have that much skill expression, then it might have shown you like things like tempo and things like that. But
yeah, it was more about how to see the line, almost like a chess player. You know, the like high level grandmaster chess players see like 6 moves ahead. That was what Pokemon was, of like, I play this supporter to go find this item, to grab this item for my Pokemon to evolve, to attach an energy, to switch the Pokemon to swing for a knockout and take prizes. If I do that in a different sequence, I brick and I don't do it at all. So Pokemon, I think, let me see the sequencing of a card game, but Flesh and Blood lets me play my opponent in the essence of like, I have the sequencing of the card game, I have the math value of it now, and I also get to play like poker while I'm playing it.
Yeah. So all right. So we have like step 1 on this journey that we're gonna plot. So the first thing you did was like, it sounds like you stuck to a deck that you knew gave you a higher ceiling, and you said when you first started playing, you lost a bunch, but you knew like, oh, I know I can get there. I know it has a ceiling, and I know that this kind of fits my play style, which kind of echoes the episode that we did with Wes. Talks about like generalist versus being a specialist and finding that. So if you're one of these players that is like trying to fish for your first Armory win, especially in a scene that's as like stacked as Colorado, anywhere you go in Colorado, I mean Denver, Springs, it's all insane. RTNs this weekend are gonna be crazy. Like it's so much talent. Yeah, I know. So much talent is in the room at the same time. It's like, it's so bizarre, because then when we travel, it feels like, for at least day 1, it feels not easy, but like it's not Team Ascent. It's not, like you said, Blood Rush Fellows. It's not any of the other super good players that we have in the Springs. The good players, Cody Reddy out in Denver, Level 7 and Aiden and Advantage game. There's so many. I'm forgetting a ton, but there's so many good players that when you walk into a room, you're like, yeah, we're gonna play some Flesh and Blood today. So you picked the deck that you knew that had the highest ceiling. Did anything else change? So like, what changed in like your preparation? Did the volume go up? Did the like the amount you paid attention to the games? Maybe it was like the same amount of games, but you were just more like present. Tuck has this thing now where he's taking notes, and I see like a lot of players doing that, like pen and paper notes. Like, what was the difference? So now you have your deck. That's step one. What changed in preparation?
The main thing that changed was like the constant research, like R&D of looking at what, like, oh, I lost to Bravo. Why did I lose? What was he doing that caused me to lose? Oh, I lost to Azalea. What was she doing that caused me to lose? What did I do wrong, or what could I have done better to play in that scenario? A lot of people like to say that they get high rolled, or oh, I just didn't draw my out soon enough. I needed it sooner. Some games end up like that, don't get me wrong. It's a card game at the end of the day. There's variance. But there's a lot of times where you made a calculated risk somewhere in that game of, are they bluffing it? Can I afford to hold this card and leak this extra damage because maybe they'll play into my turn and whatever. There's always some sort of calculated risk in the game that you're taking, and finding that point in the game of this is the fraction point, or the divergent path of, if I do X here, this happens. If I do Y here, this happens. Isolating that when I wanted to be more competitive, it changed a lot about how I think about the game. When we went to the Pro Quest, I was one game shy of being top 8. I got 9th place. The game that lost it for me was against an Azalea, which is a pretty comfortable matchup for me now. But at the time, it wasn't super comfortable. And I nailed down the exact reason I lost. It was because I didn't pull in my Faendal's Fighting Spirits.
So it's like a deck building thing. So that one was a. It's tough though, because what do you think? Finding that fork in the road where it's like this. First off, there's 2 points. So I'm going to take this so I don't forget. Fork in the road. Players need to really stop looking at the end life total, and then being like, "Well, see, if I just hit the thing, you're down to 2. So if I threw the thing where I didn't, you'd be dead." Where it's like, dude, health is a resource. There's nothing that gets me filled with rage more than when that happens and they look at the life total at the end and they're not paying attention. They're not paying attention to, like, dude, this is like, you going here versus going here is like a form of like Inception or something. Like it's changing the game so much from that pivot point that, like, you can't just be like, well, I would have had you if I just did the thing, because no, you wouldn't have. I wouldn't have taken more damage out. You know what I mean? When people like just look at the life total and they're like, oh, if I just hit you for 2 more, you would have been dead. Where it's like, nah, bitch, I'm at 2 because I let you take me to 2. The fuck?
I got to 2 on my own.
But they don't know, like, so that point. But it's tough to find that point sometimes. Like, there's some games where players will lose and they're like, I don't know. I know I lost and I know I probably misplayed, but like, shit, I don't know where. Like, it's hard to.
I think the part of that the reason I can dial in on that so well is because of playing competitive Destiny. So when I say I played competitive Destiny, it wasn't a competitive game. It was like a shooter, MMORPG-esque sort of game.
If you're listening and I'm putting the mic real quick. If you're listening to this and you don't know what Destiny is, get your fucking life together. I don't even play shooters. That game is awesome.
Yeah,
that game is so much fun.
And I was really competitive, and I used to stream it on Twitch. I used to do what was called Trials of Osiris. I would take 2 people from my Twitch stream, and I would carry them all the way from 0 games played to 7 flawless wins in Trials, and it was like a mini tournament every weekend. I would do that all day, Saturday and Sunday, and I'd get followers and subs and whatever, and so I would do that. And I think that game showed me of, oh, that guy sniped me from this spot. That's why we lost that game a month ago. Now I'm going to check that spot before I come around this corner and not open myself up to that. That is where I think I got that aspect of, like, seeing the divergent path of this is what lost me the game as opposed to this.
I think another thing that I know you're very good at, and you said it, like, there is variance, and you hate to be like, well, I just got high rolled, and it does happen sometimes. So don't ever be the guy that's like also not that way, where it's like, I don't care, where it's like, dude, I just played 3 Art of Wars against you into Ancestral, into I top decked the nuts, and blew
You
you
talking
out.
about that game we played last night?
Exactly. Like, if your opponent is saying, like, I've never done this before, this never happens, I've played hundreds of games on this list, and this is the first time that's ever happened, usually you can just, like, I'm not saying you played perfectly, but there's, like, I remember there was a game that me and Wes played once, and he was on Lexi, and I had presented on the mid-range version of Katsu. There's not even Art of War in the deck. I presented like 47 to him in one turn. Just because, like, I had Razor Reflex on the Whelming and I drew into the next thing. And he sat there for like 15 actual minutes. And he said, don't touch the chain. Don't touch the chain. I need to see where I could have blocked. And I'm like, bro, you're Lexi. Half the cards in your deck block for 2. And I presented 47, bro. And he's like, no. I need to see if and eventually he was just like, yeah, I got high rolled.
Yeah.
But the thing that you do very well is you don't like to just, like, if you lose, chalk it up to a high roll. You're very, very present and aware when you're playing. And I think that if you're a player that can't find that pivot point, you have to be paying more attention to, like, the moment and take notes. Like, take notes, because if every time you have a question where it's like, oh, I could do this line or this line, and then you just do one, that's a pivot point that you're not, like, actually, like, recalling. So then you see the end of the game and you're like, oh man, I got high roll. But, like, every single time you have more than one line, do I send this? Do I arsenal it? Do I fake, there's so many of those that happen, and I think players aren't as aware as someone like you, so they're not able to capitalize on them. And this is another thing that I touched on with Max yesterday, that he said something about, like, he loses a lot. And I'm so glad that you said this, because, man, the best players that I can talk to that don't have an ego talk about how much they lose. And, dude, I lose a ton. Did you see me when I played Uzi for, like, a week? I don't think I won a single game in the Armory. And I was like, how does anyone win with this pile of garbage?
Yep.
But I learned a lot about the deck. It sucks. I don't like it, but I learned.
Yep.
But you got to be,
That's part of it, too. So the other part of it is the guy who taught me to play card games. His name's Duran.
Shout out to Duran. That dude he's a real one. I like. Duran is a real one.
People in the world.
Yeah.
He taught me to play card games, and he's a big fighting game player. He plays Street Fighter competitively. All of his friends do. He was like, hey, man, let's play Street Fighter. I couldn't do a fucking fireball to save my life, because it's like a half circle and a button. And I would either overextend or I would do half of the half circle, and I couldn't get it out. I lost, I think, 7 or 8 games in a row. It was like, cool, this ain't for me. But with Flesh and Blood, I've lost. There have been times we went to D&J's once, and you beat me 7 games in a row, and every time you beat me, I was like, all right, let me try this.
Yeah.
Let's try it again. Let's run it back. Let me see what's going on. Because I was trying new stuff in the list, and the new stuff in the list wasn't working. And then we talked about what it was and collab together.
Those are the sessions that people level up the most, man. And, like, people hate to have those sessions because they suck. But I remember we talk about Garrett a lot on this podcast, and I'm going to have him on too. There was a session where we were labbing, and again, we were just practicing. I think I went 5-0 against Garrett in labbing. And dude, that dude beats me all the time in the armories. It's not like that in the armories. And we go head to head. It's somewhere around 50-50 at this point. But in that play testing session, he was testing a lot of different things. And he came back, and it was a while before I took another game off him because of all of, like, you learn so much more when you lose.
Yep.
It's like crazy. If you're trying to actually get better, you shouldn't really be seeking out wins. You should be seeking out knowledge. And when you beat someone, especially someone that's, like, not as good as you, if you beat them, you really don't learn anything. That's why, like,
you're not gaining a lot.
Yeah, you're very good at this too, man. My hat is off to you, Dylan. You said Dylan S. Siren.
Yeah,
I almost said Siren. Siren.
I think both are probably correct. He's got a last name like mine, where people are just gonna mess it up.
Yeah, but, like, are very good. Springs are very good about, like, when a new player comes, or we're not just steamroll them over, because the better I get you, the better you will get me in return. Yep. And I remember that session, but we don't have sessions like that very often. And it's been the same vice versa. Like, I've had playtest sessions with you, with Garrett, with Dylan, where, like, I'm getting obliterated. The last Armory, me and you met in the losers bracket. I lost, and I was like, I gotta get out of here, bro. And it wasn't because I was like, oh man, I lost. It was like, I already know the deck changes that I need to make. Yeah. You guys beat it out of me, and I'm like, this is like an issue with deck building and deck construction. I need to make these changes now. I didn't want to play with this. And everyone was like, just stay. And like,
You lost to a turn 2 dishonored Dory, by the way.
Yeah, I dishonored
I
him.
just want to put that out there.
I dishonored him. Those that are saying that it's just an instant win, all my Katsu stands out there, that it's like, if you just dishonor them, you can't fall asleep at the wheel after you dishonor them. And you can't have a bad deck either. And that's what happened. I dishonored him, then I was just drawing like Uno, draw 4, the Joker from a play. Yeah, I was drawing cards that are just unplayable. I'm like, these cards suck.
You had a random Dash.io card in there.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Speaking of Garrett's the guy that I beat for the first Armory win, and then also beat him in the finals for the second Armory win like a month later. The way that I beat him the first time was I leaned into that playing your opponent thing, because Garrett's a very like calculated person.
He is.
He plays off of the math of the game, and whereas I play off of the feel of the game. So I kind of exploited the fact that he plays that way, and it was like a lot of, I'm playing toward this singular reaction is the reaction that blows him out if he blocks around it to where there's no way I could have it. I always have the out, is because I'm playing toward that's my out and I have it in hand.
It's such an interesting topic, because I think, one, I'm going to have a podcast with Garrett about exactly what you just said. I think me and him, speaking about being on different sides of the same coin, we both play Ninja, but I play Katsu, he plays Fi. He plays very logically, I play very off-feel. Are we both very successful in what we do? Absolutely. Garrett is like a monster. So, like, big feather in your cap to beat Garrett both times, because more often than not, Garrett is at least in the finals at our locals, and he travels and competes. He has his peak, you know what I mean? Like, he's going to the Pro Quest coming up in LA. He's done very well day 2 in Vegas. Like, we're going to have him on here. But that's what I mean, is like, when you won the Armory, it wasn't like matchmaking luck, deck luck. It was none of that. You did it in a room that was filled with killers, and then you were like, hey, I need to make sure that this wasn't a fluke, and I'm going to repeat this. And you did it again, which is why I was like, dude, I got to have this guy on to talk about this, because there's like a lot of players I know, again, locally and not locally, that are they just want that first Armory win. And there was like a pivot point with you where it was like, you were kind of just showing up and people were like, Blake who? And now it's like, no, everyone knows your name. And I said, there's like, Simon is one of them, you're one of them, Dylan's one of them. There's a few players and that I'm forgetting. Their Springs is so fucking stacked. Like, and I had Max on yesterday. You know, there's a lot of players in Springs that people might know of, and they've traveled and competed, and there's some that we know. And you're on that list for sure. And I just want, again, capture that lightning in a bottle. There's when someone is going through it and you can see like, oh shit, like something's changed. He's onto something. That's when I'm like, yo, grab the mic. Let's get this going, because there's going to be other people that are that way. And I remember when I first started, I was chasing that first Armory win. Now it's more and more and more and more. Now we got RTN season coming up, and it's cool though. So, all right. So you found your deck that you thought you could do well. You lost a lot. And then in preparation, you were very mindful of those pivot points, and you asked yourself a lot of these questions like, how would I fix this game? Why did I lose? Why did I think that I lost? And you were labbing those games a lot on Talishar. Is there anything else that changed either in your mindset when you were sitting across from these players that maybe usually beat you? Any other preparation changes? Like, you had your deck, you were taking notes and understand why you lost. Was that it? Did that get you the victory? And just repeating that? Was there anything else? Like, what was the secret sauce?
Part of it was like actually February. I remember back when I first played, it was like fabdb.net or something, and you could just build a deck there, and that was it. There was no matchups and no stats and no hypergeometric time chamber, hyperbolic calculator, whatever it was. There was none of that. It was just, here's your deck. Good luck.
That's actually where I made my first deck. I didn't know FabRare was a thing either. I know FabDB. Yeah.
FabDB is the best. That's like probably 90% of it. So I dedicate a lot of like probably an unhealthy amount of time to FabDB or FabRare. Messing with that. YouTube, watching like high level tournaments and watching the better players play, seeing why they made these decisions. Also, one of the bigger things that I had to wrap my mind around to be more competitive and to like try to take these wins is to play to my outs every time. I have never conceded a game in Flesh and Blood that had anything more going, like any other stakes than just bragging rights. If there's even a fucking pack of cards on the line of an armory, like you get a pack for a win or whatever, I will not concede that game, and I will play it until I lose the game. Because finding your outs, realizing, oh, this card is way better at the end of the game, or, oh, this tech piece that I had actually changed the tempo in my favor, the playing to your outs, you won't see that. If you're not playing to your outs, you won't see that.
It also opens up your mind to possibilities where, like, you might just be like, well, I lost, scoop it up, whatever. Where you're drawing, you're like, oh shit, if this card was in my list, I actually could make a comeback from here. You also get to limit test that way. I love that. Like, echo that for sure. There was, I got cracked for 20 on turn 0 the other day, so I started at Blitz Health.
Yep.
And I was like, fuck it, we're playing this out.
Yep.
And I got him down. I got him down to 1. I still lost. Oh, and then I was labbing with Cody Reddy the other day, and he's on Dromai, and we're on game 3 at 3, and this dude is beating my ass left and right. Cody Reddy's an amazing card player generally. He's very good at Runeterra. R.I.P. Pour one out for the homie. Runeterra is dead. But he's very good at Flesh and Blood. He was like top 100 at Runeterra. He's like another one of the homies, and we were doing some scrimmages, and he hits me for Tumultine turn 1 and breaks the mask, and he's like, yo, let's just run it back. And I'm like, nah, man, like, no, we're good. Like, we could do this. And I took him down to, like, 4 or 3 or whatever. The game was very close. And I forgot that how, like, when, you're in a game like that and you're thinking about every play and I kind of forget that he blew up the mask that early and we got through the game. And we always go, like, it was more him asking me on this training session, what do you think went wrong for you? Because, again, he was wiping the floor with me during during this testing session. But even he was like, damn, like, without a mask, you got me to 4. Like, that's kind of a win. There's, you know what I mean? Right. Like, you got high rolled a little bit, but you're still able to. And I remember when we were on stream once and I was doing the Katsu reps when we were live streaming it, I actually got turn 0 Tomotide and won the game. Sometimes those victories feel even better when you claw from behind, but you also get to limit test, like Blake said, and you get to, like,
getting turn 2 Dishonored and still winning as a Dawnblade. You don't even have a hero; you're just a sword.
Turns out, new Dory with the Vigor tokens is pretty good.
It's pretty strong.
It's pretty good. I did make changes to my list after that, though. It really. That was like, I can think there's been exactly 3 times where I have dishonored my opponent. And they won.
And I'm one of those?
You're one of them. You're one of them. Max is the other one. And Ryan from Team Taco is the other one.
Are you sending out plaques or trophies or something for this? Because
I used to think that when I hit people with the dishonor, I want them to sign the card so I could just start collecting, especially at a tournament. I mean, I hit Yanji Lee with a dishonor when he was in Lexi and I was in Vegas. And I dishonored him and took that game. So that's where the idea started, because I was like, I should really get him to sign this card, but he probably doesn't want to.
Yeah, that'd be a salty moment.
He was super graceful in defeat, man. He actually, Team Runaways were giving out custom Quicken tokens. Yeah. And he had given me one after. And I was like, why did you give me this? And he was like, we're just giving them to everyone. But funny Yanji Lee story, if you've ever played against him, had the pleasure of sharing the table with him, 1, he's a fucking killer. But 2, he doesn't show up with a mat. He doesn't have a play mat. So he just sits there, he's playing on the table, and I'm like, who is this guy? I didn't know who he was at the time. And I always ask my opponent to shuffle my deck so that I can shuffle theirs, because then everyone always is like, they always ask, like, why? And I'm like, oh, because, like, if I high roll, it's your fault. You can't blame me. Right. If you high roll, then I. And I'll never forget the look on his face. And I was like, can you shuffle my deck? I insist. And he looked me dead in my eyes and laughed at my face. And he was like, why? And it was so hard for me to, like, keep up, like, you know what I mean? When I sit at the table and I was like, oh, fuck, come on, dude. You shut up with no mat, just playing on the tablecloth. And you're, like, making fun of me because I'm asking you to shuffle my deck. He was like, all right, just shuffled it. But you're right. I should start the inverse dishonor card, where when you beat me and I dishonor you, you get something. I don't know. It doesn't feel good, dude.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel good. All right, so what's next, dude? So now you've tasted armory after armory win in rooms filled with killers. What is next for Blake? Like, what are you prepping for? I know we have. Are you going to LA for?
I'm not.
You're not going to LA, but I know you're doing the RTNs. Where does this progress? Like, where do you take it from here? So now we have the person that's listening, they're taking notes, and they're like, all right, sweet, found the deck that I want to play. I'm losing a lot, but I'm learning. I'm paying attention to my losses. I'm studying. I'm labbing. I'm trying harder. I took my armory. What's the next natural progression for you? Say it out loud, because first off, I want to hear this to follow this, because you are, like I said, one of these up-and-coming people that you've been playing the game and you've been winning a lot, but it's been localized to Springs, and we get to see these players where it's like, ooh, I can't wait for you and a couple others to start traveling, because you guys are going to give a lot of people trouble. So, like, what's next down the pipe? And is your prep changing? Is it more of the same? What's going on?
The next thing is definitely taking these RTNs. I'm really excited that we're recording this episode, because I'm going to go up to Denver and I'm going to whoop Team Ascent. They're going to be like, who the fuck was that guy? And then I can just link them this podcast, and they'll be like, oh, okay, makes sense.
A lot of them watching. It's all love, Team Ascent. You guys have to know that you guys are like public enemy number one. Yeah. Because of how good you guys are, everyone's trying to get those games off
of you.
It's
not Colorado versus the world. It's Springs versus the world. And you guys are, it's like collateral damage at that point. But
I got Matt Easton coming on this podcast. Shots can't be fired until I have them on here, bro.
You're full welcome. They're going to have to talk smack after I beat them up in Denver this weekend.
All right, so RTNs, and then what else? Are you looking past that, or is it just prepare for RTN season, qualify for nationals, and then take it from there?
That's kind of it. It's prepare for the RTN season. I really want to qualify for nationals, and then I want to prove to myself that all of the time and effort that I'm putting into this isn't for naught. If I can qualify for Nats at least, that shows me that it's like worth pursuing. Ideally, we go to Nats, we take that too, and I'm the next Michael Hamilton or Charles Dunn, or they're looking to me, hey, how'd you do this with your deck or whatever. That's kind of the goal. I want to be good enough. I want to be as good at this game as I think I am, and I want to prove that to myself.
I feel that, bro. I mean, like, that's a lot of why I do what I'm doing. You know what I mean? So I like that. That like resonates right here with me, because that's a lot of my motivation. I'm sure a lot of people are going to listen to that and be like, fuck yeah, that's what I'm trying to do. Like, I'm trying to just prove how good I know I am type thing. You know what I mean? So that's what's up, dude. That's all right. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It's gonna be this weekend. This won't be live for a while, because I did the one with Max. That's gonna be the next one. So right now, that will be next Wednesday, 2 weeks from then. So it might be after RTN season, where this or right around then. It'll be the next one, but it'll be a couple weeks from then. So it'll be interesting to see how this stuff pans out with this. But I love it, dude. Like, I think that's so important, and having a reason why you play Flesh and Blood, whether it be for fun or, whatever it is. It's like a lot of us are like old fucks like myself that came from competing in something else. And like, I used to weightlift and fight and do a lot of fight like competitively, not just like, hey, you!
I know what you meant. I did that.
Yeah. But like,
when you get in the ring with somebody and you're telling each other like, hey, we're going to beat each other up and we're going to have a good time.
Dude, it was my Muay Thai days are one of the craziest days ever, because when I think back about it now, I turned 36 this month. 36. When I used to fight, it's like we would both pay money. Me and the other guy I'm fighting pay money to fight each other to go to work the next day.
Yeah. Like,
now we're not making money, we're paying money. And it was like, you look at your opponent, and I feel this in Flesh and Blood. Like, I'm sitting across from you. Trust me, I'm a nice guy. I want to fucking eat your soul with my cards. Like, I want to take everything from you. But after, we can go smoke some of Colorado's finest, grab a brew, and we're kicking it. I have nothing but the most respect for my opponent after, because we did the dance. You know what I mean? But for me, it's like, it's the same reason I do this podcast. It's very like intrinsic. It makes me feel good. So there's a lot of people that have like whatever reason, but I think it's important, and I wasn't even going to hit on that, but like having a reason also helps with all this stuff, whether it be you want to prove to the world, you want to prove to yourself, you want to prove to whoever that you're able to do the things, and just keep grinding, man. Because like I said, Blake, it fits the narrative of this episode and the last episode we did, going from being a casual player to competitive. But I know that you never really stood up like, on the goofiest list and didn't care about winning. You always wanted to win, but there was like a change in gear that I noticed. I just didn't get to dive in with this, and all this stuff makes a lot of sense, man. Like, I'm sitting here taking notes because I need to do more of the shit that you're talking about, and need to do more of it. It's like back to the basics, and all this shit helps, and that's what's up, dude. Before we sign off, I want to ask you a question, and then we'll go and I'll do any shout outs after. You mentioned watching YouTube and doing research for players that are trying to improve. Are there any? I know you said them in the beginning, but like now that we're here and they can just jot it down and you can say it slower. Are there any that you really, really recommend that maybe me, who everyone should kind of be paying attention to these podcasts, or like knowledge that's being out there?
One of the major podcasts that helps a lot is On the Bobble with Yuki Lee Bender, and I forget the co-host's name, but he's insane at Limited. I'm very weak at that portion of Flesh and Blood, so I'm trying to improve there. And they're insane. They break down everything. They go through their reports and their decks that they built and all that. So that's a really good spot for like limited gameplay alongside the Runaways podcast. I love Flesh and Pod. Those guys are hilarious. And that was the first podcast I listened to where I was like, oh shit, it's not just like Flesh and Blood nerdy guys. Like, they're just chill dudes that talk shit, and it's like a lot of fun to be around them. And then as far as YouTube goes, basically any of the big events that Savage Feats does their production on. Their production is
the big ones, yeah.
Top tier, and it helps you get a better grasp of the game. If I've never played this deck, but I'm watching calling where this deck is being played by somebody who's 6-1 or whatever, they're playing that at a high level, and I can watch their play patterns. I can see what decisions they're making, and I can, take notes then and there. Also, when you're playing Talishar games, if you really want to get the most out of it, have a Discord open with a buddy of yours who's also playing Flesh and Blood, or who doesn't care that you blow them up with messages, and just jot down notes. I've been practicing some decks on the back end other than Dory, and the guy that I'm practicing these decks with, he wants this deck to be good, so I'm helping lab it with him. And I'm making tweaks to the deck because he doesn't consider himself a good deck builder. And there's a lot of like, this card felt good because of X, changing this card, this is the way that you do this matchup, I presented this many cards. Just those little bit of notes here and there, they actually help in the long run because you have something to look back on. Why did I lose this game? Why didn't this go my way? You have something to look back on.
I've realized that like even just the like action of taking in the notes, even if you don't ever go back and look at it, it means that you're more like, I play better when I'm writing down life totals, and I love Fab Life. And if you don't have Fab Life downloaded right now, get out my face and download that shit. Fab Life is the greatest app. Use it all the time. But there is something to slowing down and just putting pen to paper and actually taking notes, whether you even look back at the notes or not. That mindfulness and being present of like, I'm going to take this note down. It's like that might stick with you.
Yeah. Sorry, I forgot one more thing.
Yeah.
Fabrary. If you're looking at a deck list and that deck list does not match your deck list, ask yourself why. Ask yourself before you even reach out to the person who's playing it, or look at their sideboard matchups, look at the card that's in the list that you're questioning, and try to figure out why you would put it in your own deck. There was a guy at the AGE Open, and he was running Humble in his Dorinthia list, as it was a popper, but then I started looking at it like, why is he running Humble? Because it basically just shuts off your hero ability. So I'm like, what reason would he have to have that in the list? A lot of that helped me refine my list personally to get to where my list is at and where I'm at with the game competitively. Using other people's lists to get ideas, and then looking at like interesting tech cards and asking those questions, that'll help a lot too. If you want to go from taking the game, I guess, casually to a more competitive level, thinking about all those random cards. I beat my first Armory with a Talisman of Featherfoot in my deck.
Damn.
If you know what that is, I'll give you a cookie.
It's like +1 to everything. If it has exactly if it has exactly +1, it gets go again.
If it gets exactly +1, during the reaction step,
It gets going
that
again?
attack can't go again.
Okay. It seemed
it's
pretty impressive that I knew what the fuck that card was. You know more than anyone. The only reason I know what that card is because you played that shit. If you asked me that like time travel like a few months ago, I'd be like, you're making that fucking card up with Talisman of the Feather Feet?
Yeah. It's an item with go again. It was yellow. And I was like, this is the fucking spice. Kasai's going to put this shit in her list. I'm going to be one step ahead of the game. I played it. I won that armory with it. You singing Steelblade into that, you don't need to find go again. You just find your pump.
It's not on your list anymore. It's not on your list anymore though, right?
We'll find out.
It doesn't block though, right? It's an item?
It's an item. It doesn't.
Yeah, put all those in against me, bro. All right, before we log off, man, any shout outs that we haven't already shouted out? Anyone that you want to shout out? Or
I want to shout out my beautiful girlfriend, Ursula. I want to shout out my buddy that got me into the game. He's basically a brother, Duran. Shout out to the Moon Marauders community. We're a Discord community of gamers. It's not a gaming community. You go there, meet people, just discord.gg.
I'll put the link in there. I'll put the link in the comments.
Okay. Yeah, I'll send you the link. We'll put it down there. Basically, just a place to go and meet people, play fighting games, play MMOs, play whatever. If you want to play a game, hell, I'm going to start running the Flesh and Blood stuff in there too. So if you want to come and look for games, we're just going to have games going in there. Link up for Talishar. Shout out to myself because I made it here and I'm on the fucking podcast.
Hell yeah, dude. Yeah, Blake, this is amazing, man. I really had a lot of fun. I think this is going to resonate with a lot of people. And like I said, if you don't know who this dude is, you're about to find out. We got a lot of killers up in Springs that are going to come out and start to take over the scene. And shout out to all the Denver folk. I know that you said that you got a target, you got your scope on Team SM, but like, you know, iron sharpens iron. If the Denver players up there weren't as good as they were, the Springs wouldn't be striving to continue to try to catch up to them. So
100%.
Yeah, I can't wait to see everyone, man. RTN season's upon us. When I first started playing, it was RTN season. I think I played like 2 weeks of Flesh and Blood. I got my ass beat by everyone. So like, dude, I can't wait for this shit.
First RTN I went to, I went 0-4 and dropped.
Yeah.
That's not going to happen this time.
No, that sounds about right, dude. Redemption for all of us. And everyone got so much better, and we got new players in both scenes. So, dude, I can't wait. Play some Flesh and Blood, guys. Listen to what Blake said. Find a deck that works for you. Start paying attention to your games. If you're out there on the hunt for your first armory win, this dude did it twice in a room full of killers. So listen to what he just said. Yo, Blake, we're definitely going to have you back on, dude. I appreciate the fuck out of you, bro.
Peace. Much love.
See you guys.